Welcome to this episode of the Happy Workaholic Podcast. I'm your host, Kellyanne Gorman. I'm a business coach, luxury travel expert, and lifestyle blogger, currently residing in the beautiful city of Las Vegas. The Happy Workaholic Podcast is a happy, healthy, positive, and very productive show about living life in the fast lane, learning how to slow down, and how to become the best version of yourself through inspiration, motivation, and determination, both personally and professionally. If this sounds like something you're in need of in your life, then you've come to the right spot. I'll be sharing some of my favorite business tips, personality, and crazy stories from my own career choices. You will also be hearing from a few of my friends who happen to be entrepreneurs like myself. Don't forget, the conversation continues after the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under the hashtag #TheHappyWorkaholic. Now, if you want to hear any of my exclusive news first, just visit my website, kellyannegorman.com, and sign up to receive my weekly VIP newsletter. Now let's get started with today's show. Hello, and welcome to episode 3, FOMO. Now, if you're unfamiliar what FOMO is, it's actually an acronym for the fear of missing out. And I don't know about you, but I have definitely had to miss out on some pretty important events over the last few years. And the reason behind that is because I'm working. And you obviously know by now that I'm a workaholic, a happy one at that, of course. And I chose this life, and I chose to bury myself in my work because I see the light, I see the bigger picture, and sometimes you just have to make specific sacrifices because you know where you want to end up down the road. And when this happens to me, half of me is so sad and depressed, and I'm like looking at everybody's pictures on social media where I should be. And then the other half of me needs to take all my negative energy and turn it into a positive because I am working like this for a reason, because I do want to be my own boss, and I do see the light at the end of the tunnel, like everybody says, and you want to continue to be your own boss, then you have to continue to put that work in. And I absolutely do what I love, and I love being my own boss, which is creating content and blogs for others, putting content out for this podcast now, and I really enjoy helping others succeed in their businesses and brands, but also love creating itineraries for vacations for them to enjoy too. So half of me is sad because I'm creating all these amazing itineraries for people, and I should be the one going on that insane vacation, right? Well, I know in the end I'll be able to do something like that, but it takes hard work, and I'm telling you, hard work will definitely pay off, and I'm definitely an example of that. I have worked so hard to get this podcast up and running, where I've had to sacrifice a lot of barbecues, nights out with friends, and living in Las Vegas, there's something happening every single night. And I just had to suck it up and put myself into a positive place and keep it moving. So if you've ever had a case of FOMO, or you're just buried in your work and you're stuck in a rut and you need to find that positive place, I'm here to give you some of my tips and tricks and tell you what I personally do. First off, one of the things that I've been doing religiously every single day, probably for the last few months, but more than twice a day since June 1st, is meditate. And it's really hard to get into meditation when you start off with a longer one. So even if I just do a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, it really, really helps me keep me focused and grounded for the day. So I definitely recommend finding certain apps like Insight Timer or Headspace, something that you can relate to and it's searchable and you can find. There's literally thousands of meditations. I prefer doing ones for energy and for positivity, and I actually do one to help me fall asleep at night for a deep sleep, and it really, really has changed my day, my productivity. So I would definitely recommend doing something like that, is meditation first. Second, I would definitely recommend getting a journal if you don't already have one. As you've probably heard or read in some of my posts or on the podcast before, the reason how this podcast became a podcast is because I started writing. So even if it's just like the quickest journal entry, like just spend a couple minutes, 2 to 5 minutes writing, getting your thoughts on a piece of paper, or even just calling a friend and venting. You know, we all have those best friends that you can just call and be like, okay, I need to vent. You just need to take the time and do that, because getting it out and voicing it out or putting it down on paper will take that stress away, and then again will put you in a much more positive space. Another thing I like to do is go to Michael's craft store or any arts and crafts store and find a cork board and just start fresh. Everybody has their happiness boards and their work boards. I personally have one for work, and then I have one for all my positive quotes, and I'm a huge collector of fortune cookie messages, so I actually have a lot of those. I actually used to just have a cork board dedicated for the little messages inside my fortune cookies, but now I've picked out my favorites and I've added them to my quote board. And so most recently I actually just took a trip to the art store to get boards for my podcast. I'm a very visual person, so if I see something, just like looking at a mantra or an affirmation or a quote, if you look at it and it's repetitive and you see it constantly every day, it's going to put you in that positive place that you need to be in order to get your work done and not feel that FOMO. Not be so sad and depressed, like I said I was in the beginning, because you see the light and you see your vision and you want to turn everything that you're working on into a reality, right? So if you see something, it's so much easier for it to connect in your mind, to be in that mindset that you really need to have to continue the work that needs to get done, so that you don't feel so, maybe lonely or depressed and, you are missing out. Okay, well, the next one you won't have to miss out on, because the next event you won't have to miss out on, because you're going to be able to be there bigger, better, and stronger, because you have accomplished this work that you're trying to get done now. So for all of those workaholics out there like myself, I'm telling you, you need to meditate. Make sure you drink lots of water, of course. Keep yourself hydrated for these long work days that we're putting in. And especially journaling and getting something visual, venting to a friend. These are things that I always have on my list because they just help, and they help me in my productivity, and they keep me more positive to get all of my work done. Now, if you're having trouble doing something like this and you're not a visual person and maybe you just prefer lists, I am actually obsessed with list making. And if you ask anybody that knows me, they will tell you that I have a list for absolutely everything. I color code my planner with highlighters. I color code my Post-its for certain lists, and it just keeps me more organized. And again, as positive as you can possibly be to get your work done, you won't have that fear of missing out feeling. So because it's Friday, I wanted to make this short and sweet 5-minute Friday podcast and just tell you, if you are experiencing some FOMO, it's okay. It's life. You're going to experience it. But what you need to do is turn those negatives into positives. And like I said, do some journaling, listen to some meditations, go out and make yourself a happiness board or a cork board. Some people like clipping things from magazines and doing all of those beautiful happiness boards that you see all over Pinterest. Mine is really simple. It's actually just quotes, and they're all over my Instagram story. So if you've looked at them, you'll see they're coming from my quote corkboard and my other happiness board they're just quotes and inspirational mantras that I've come across, and I just look at them every morning, and it keeps me going. And so I don't have that fear of missing out, because I know that I'm working on something for a reason. Everything's happening for a reason. And again, I chose this life. I chose to be in the position that I'm in. So if you don't want to be in that position, and you need to make some changes, then you should just make a list and then check off each one when you've accomplished it, and it will make you feel so much better. So again, I hope this was helpful. I just wanted to make it, like I said, short and sweet, and give you some inspiration, a little motivation, and some of my tips and tricks on what I do when I'm feeling like I'm missing out on some events. And when you get to the next level and you're not missing out, you're going to be able to celebrate it and appreciate it so much more. And I'm actually going to be able to do that myself tonight. at one of my favorite happy hour spots. So I'm congratulating myself for working extremely hard this week, missing out on a lot of stuff, especially in Vegas for 4th of July. But that's okay, because I'm going to be much bigger, better, and stronger on the next one. And if you keep this positive attitude and you continue to journal and write stuff down and look at something visual and just be in this positive place, you are going to feel so much better. So again, if you want some more inspiration and motivation, you can always find me on Instagram at KK in Vegas. Check out my stories because I post a lot of them there daily. I also always post my happiness vase. A lot of people have happiness jars. I like to make mine a little fancy, so I put in this beautiful purple vase I have. And every morning I write down something that makes me happy. Or every night at the end of the day, you can write down something that made you happy that day. So when you are having some FOMO and you are feeling like you're missing out on something, you just take out one of those little pieces of paper that you wrote on that made you happy that day. And maybe even you need a couple more than one. Just pull out a couple and look at them and know that you are like all those happiness quotes and inspirations that you wrote down for yourself, they'll put you back in that positive place that you need to be, and you won't have your FOMO issue. So again, thank you so much for listening. This is short and sweet. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you like this episode, please let me know by writing a review for the Happy Workaholic podcast. I would truly appreciate it. As I always say, sharing is caring. Don't forget, the after show happens on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search under the hashtag The Happy Workaholic. That's where I'll be to answer all of your questions about any of my episodes. Now, if for some reason you're not on social media, you can always reach me via my website at kellyannegorman.com. Oh, and while you're there, make sure you sign up to receive my VIP newsletter. You'll be getting those delivered in your inbox every Wednesday. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk again soon.